What's up, guys? Alastair here, and super excited to be able to talk to you guys a little bit about podcasting. Guys, the response that we've gotten so far about the Loft has been unbelievable. A lot of people reaching out to us saying, hey, I've always had an idea for a podcast, or I have a podcast, I'm ready to take it to the next level. Loft looks like it might be a good fit. But I specifically want to talk to people who are thinking about starting a podcast because there's some things that you need to consider whenever it is you're starting your podcast. First thing that you need to know is that podcast is a little bit of work, right? It takes a little bit of planning work on the front end, probably more than what it is that you think. Now, the cool thing about the Loft is that we can handle all the post-production work because before you would have your planning, your pre-production, booking your different audience and guest members if you're going to have guests in there. You have the actual recording, dealing with all the equipment, making sure everything's set up right, troubleshooting, retaking, and everything else like that. And then you have where the post-production, where there's a lot of work that's involved in that. Do you want lower thirds? Do you want graphics? Do you want to put in your intro, your outro? You want music that's playing in the background? The coolest thing is that the second two parts of it, the actual recording inside of the booth and the post-production, we can handle for you at the Loft. So all you really have to do is really focus on the planning and the pre-production, the things that you want to be able to do. But let's move back even a couple steps before that. Here it is that you have this idea for a podcast. You want to be able to launch it, but we need to talk about the structure of the podcast and how it is that you can actually formulate your ideas. So I'm going to probably divide this into a multi-part series, but we'll start with the two things I think that are most important for you whenever it is you're starting your podcast. Let's go. All right, Alastair Hunt here. We're back, and we're talking about two things that you need to know when you're considering starting a podcast. And these two things are really, really important. It's the why and the what behind podcasting and about your show. What do you have that you need to be able to share with the world, and why do you want to be able to do this? So let's start with the why, because I think the why is really, really important. Whenever you do anything, what's the drive and the motivation behind you starting a podcast? What's the why and the motivation that's going to make people want to subscribe, listen to, and be on your podcast, be on your show? And we have to start with that. So what I want you to do is not just to think about this, but I want you to actually write it, storyboard it out, take some time daydreaming a little bit about if your podcast was to be huge and you would have whatever guests it is that you want to, and you have whatever audience members it is that you want to listen to it, what would that look like? And why are you doing this? Is it because you just like to talk? Is it because it is that you have a story to be able to tell the world? Do you have something that you could teach the world that's going to be able to help people to overcome some kind of obstacle or to be able to make their life a little bit easier? Why is it that you're doing this? What's the motivation behind you starting a podcast? Because if you don't know, your audience won't know, and it'll be tough for you to be able to create a following because you're going to be all over the place. It's almost like it is that you start on some kind of destination and you have no GPS, no map, and you have no idea where it is that you're going, right? You might be able to get to some place that you like eventually, but it's going to take you a lot longer time to be able to get there. Whenever it is I'm doing consulting for podcasting, this is where it is that we start. It's really figuring out, okay, so this is your podcast, this is what it is that you want to do, but why do you want to be able to do it? For example, our podcast is called The Techie and the Cowboy, and what the common thread is, even though we have different people from all different walks of life, all different places in life, all different ages, races, and everything else like that, is things that men normally don't talk about when it comes to their faith and how that faith has been able to push them forward in business and in life, right? So our questions and our interview stuff are going to be around that topic, even though it is that we have different people that have come from all different backgrounds. So you can still be able to have leave the door open for a wide variety of guests if you choose to have guests on your show, a wide variety of guests, but you still need to be able to have that common thread, and you still need to be able to have the second part, which is what is your niche? What is the person that you're talking to? If you can create a character that you were talking to, like a person that was sitting in front of you, you were talking directly to them, what does that person look like? Where is it that they work? What is it that they listen to? What kind of music do they listen to? As a matter of fact, I tell my clients, think if you could think of an avatar, somebody who it is that you're actually talking to, a person that represents the person who it is that's your audience member, right? If you can see clearly who your audience member is, it's going to make your podcast content that much more powerful because now you're talking to a specific person and you can start there, and then later on as your podcast gets bigger, as it gets more following, you can expand that podcast. I love the example of Facebook whenever it is they first got started. Everybody knows what Facebook is, but when they first got started, they were just targeting college students, and they wanted to give them an area where they can go that they didn't necessarily have to have their parents, because you had to be a college member in order to be able to get into it. Now, obviously, over the years, Facebook has expanded their niche from just college students, and then they allowed people who it is to have work addresses, email addresses to be able to go on, and now expanded to be what it is now. But they started off as a very, very niche market because they knew that that was a market that they could solve a problem in. People wanted to be able to go online, be able to communicate with each other, and their parents wouldn't necessarily see it. That's how it was marketed to me whenever it is I first joined Facebook a long, long time ago, right? And but they had a specific niche whenever it is they first got started. So who's your niche? Where is it that you're going to start? And how is it that you're going to hone down on that niche? And the best part is, whenever you book a consultation session with me, this is part of what it is that we're going to be able to design and map out for you. The next part of the what is figuring out what topics your podcast is going to be able to cover. Are you talking about gardening? Are you talking about doing mechanic work? Are you talking about cooking? Are you talking about basket weaving? Whatever it is that your topic is, what is it that you're going to talk about? And it could be multiple topics that you're talking about, but you just need to be able to have a plan. And I would suggest no more than 2 or 3 topics that you're going to be able to talk about with your guests, or by yourself if you're solo, or with your partner. If you have 2 different people that are a podcast, you're just talking back and forth. You pick a topic and you just talk on that topic, and you talk about some of the hot points in that topic. You could do that as well. But the key thing is have a plan and know what it is that you're going to be able to talk about. And then you can put those 2 together. You have your niche, and then you have what you're going to talk about, and you can see how those things overlap. For example, I'm in the fitness and nutrition background, right? So you could talk about fitness and nutrition, but there's a lot of fitness and nutrition podcasts out there. But if you talk specifically about how it is intermittent fasting could change up your whole entire plan, or if you talk specifically about how one thing about fitness and nutrition that nobody's tackling or solving an issue that people are facing when it comes to fitness and nutrition, not having enough time, whatever it is, you're going to be more likely to be able to grab an audience and get them subscribed because you're solving their problem. Now, one of the things I don't suggest is leaving the podcast open to whatever it is that you want to be able to talk about for that day. Coming in and just saying, hey, you know what? We're going to go back and forth, or we're going to talk, and we're not really going to have a plan. We're just going to see where it is that it goes. It may seem fun to you and the person who's talking, but remember, you're trying to be able to captivate this audience enough so they subscribe and say, I'm going to come back and listen to your podcast over and over again. If you have these one-off episodes that are really, really good, but they never come back and listen to it, you're kind of missing the whole point of building a podcast following. So you want to make sure it is that you have different topics, different subjects that align with your niche that you're going to be able to talk about. And the last part of it is, what's going to be the structure of your podcast? Is it going to be you hosting by yourself? Are you going to have a co-host and y'all are interviewing other people? Are you going to have a co-host so you're talking back and forth? Are you going to be like a solo where you're kind of narrating stuff? Some people, they actually have a book subject or a book topic and they'll talk about that, and they're just going to talk about the books and hit the points of the books. Are you going to be able to do this pre-recorded, which is what most podcasts do? Are you going to try and go into a live format where it is that you're actually getting interaction for the people who it is that are watching your podcast? And if you don't have a following, sometimes that can be a rough start. What's going to be the format of your podcast? So that way it is that you know. And again, this is something that you could change further on down the line, but it's good to be able to know this stuff at the very beginning. I have so many more tips to be able to give you guys that I'll be dropping as time goes on, but I wanted to start you with these things. Know your why and your what. If you know your why and what about podcasting, you'll be off to a good start. Guys, I got so many other tips to be able to share with you, but I thought I'd start here because this is a great place to start. What's your why and what's the what? Why do you want to be able to do this, and what is it that you're going to be able to do? If you start here, you'll be in good shape to be able to start your podcast. And as always, I have consultation services available on the website, so if you want me to sit down and help you to be able to map this out, that's my specialty. That's what I love doing, and I can't wait for you to record your next project right here at the Loft. We'll talk to you soon, and I'm out. Peace.